Ma'am, step away from the rake cans where I can see them. She was just cleaning her backyard. No uniform, no threat, but the officers had their weapons drawn. Then came the sound gravel crunching behind them. A black SUV pulled in slow. The officers turned and went pale. She never said a word. If you believe presence speaks louder than commands, type backup below. Could this ordinary woman be hiding a secret? Hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below telling us where in the world you're watching from, here on Graceful Valor Stories. It was a quiet Sunday afternoon, birds chirping, wind light, sky clear. The kind of day that invited simple activities, yard work, reading, the peaceful maintenance of a life deliberately kept uncomplicated. In a modest house at the edge of town, she was in the backyard with gloves on, pulling leaves from under a stone bench. Her movements were patient, no rush. The rake leaned against the fence. She wore sweatpants, boots, and a faded t-shirt with no logos. The house was unremarkable. Single-story, well-maintained, but not ostentatious, the kind of property that suggested someone who valued privacy over presentation. Her yard work was methodical, thorough, someone accustomed to completing tasks correctly rather than quickly. At 1:43 p.m., 2 local officers received a call. Suspicious activity, possible weapons stockpile. Corner house, tall woman doesn't talk to anyone. The call had come from a neighbor whose curiosity exceeded their discretion. Small-town suspicion focused on someone who maintained privacy in a community where everyone was expected to participate in social networks. They pulled up with tires crunching the edge of her gravel driveway. Officer Daniels and Officer Morrison represented typical local law enforcement, experienced with domestic disputes and traffic violations, but unprepared for situations that exceeded normal community policing. She didn't look up when they stepped through the open gate. Her focus remained on her work, not dismissive, just concentrated on completing the task at hand. "Ma'am, do you live here?" the younger officer asked. She nodded once, not speaking. The response was minimal, but sufficient acknowledgement without elaboration. "We got a call. We're going to need you to come with us while we investigate. Standard procedure for suspicious activity reports. Secure the individual while conducting a premises search." She raised an eyebrow, but didn't move. The expression suggested mild surprise at their request rather than resistance to their authority. "Ma'am," the older officer added, hand drifting to his holster. "Step away from the rake hands where I can see them." Officer Morrison had interpreted her silence as potential non-compliance. The rake had become a perceived weapon rather than a gardening tool. She stood fully upright now, calm, silent. Her movement was unhurried, deliberate. No indication of threat or agitation. She didn't reach for anything, didn't flinch, just looked at them. The eye contact was steady, assessing someone evaluating a situation rather than responding to authority. The older officer took a step forward. "I said, now." Then came the sound gravel of heavy tires rolling on gravel behind them. A black SUV pulled in slowly, headlights off. No sirens, no logos. The vehicle was official but unidentified, government transportation that suggested federal rather than local jurisdiction. The officers turned. The back door of the SUV opened, outstepped a man in a sharp black uniform. No visible badge, just a silver pin shaped like a falcon. His appearance was professional, authoritative, someone whose presence immediately shifted the dynamic of the situation. He looked at the 2 officers like they weren't even there. Then he walked toward the woman. "Commander, we've been trying to reach you." The address was respectful, professional, recognition of rank that transcended her civilian appearance. She gave him a small nod. "I wasn't hiding," she said simply. Her first words were matter-of-fact, someone who'd been available but not actively participating in whatever systems had been trying to locate her. Ever wonder what secrets lurk in a quiet backyard? Stick with us, the truth will stun you, here on Graceful Valor Stories. The man turned to the officers. "These 2 bothering you?" She looked at them, then shook her head. "They're just doing their job badly." The assessment was accurate, but not hostile. Recognition of their mistake without personal animosity. The man didn't smile. He just stepped and passed them, opened the SUV's back door again, and said, "We need you. It's active." The message was urgent, coded information that carried meaning for her but remained opaque to the local officers. She took off her gloves, placed them on the bench, and climbed into the vehicle without another word. Her departure was immediate, efficient, someone transitioning instantly from civilian mode to operational readiness. The SUV rolled away, silent, steady, gone. The two officers didn't move for 30 seconds. "Did she say commander?" the younger one whispered. The older officer didn't answer. Inside the SUV, the man in black handed her a dossier marked Level 6 Directive Return. The classification level was significant, information that exceeded normal military security protocols and suggested national security implications. "We lost control of the facility at 4,000, he said. "We've tried 4 protocols. All failed." The situation briefing was concise, urgent, multiple failed attempts to resolve a crisis that had exceeded conventional response capabilities. "Where's the director?" "Gone dark." Last words out of the building were, "Echo override failed." The communication loss was ominous. Senior personnel disappearing during crisis situations suggested threats that exceeded normal operational parameters. She scanned the document in 30 seconds, then closed it. "You brought the wrong team." Her assessment was immediate, definitive, analysis that revealed fundamental misunderstanding of the situation requiring her intervention. "That's why we're here at Joint Operations Command." Tension crackled like electricity. The facility hummed with controlled urgency. Personnel moving with purpose while managing stress levels that suggested ongoing crisis conditions. "Aide, ma'am, you can't be in here. This briefing is standard security protocol for unauthorized personnel entering classified operational areas." Colonel Ramirez looked up. His eyes went wide. Recognition that transcended normal introduction procedures. Someone whose presence immediately changed his understanding of the situation. "Let her through." "Sir, I don't—" "Let her through." The authority in his voice was absolute, overriding normal security procedures through recognition of someone whose clearance exceeded standard protocols. Then to the others, "Clear the room. Everyone below Tier 4, out now." Security classification that restricted access to only the highest level personnel. Information that required protection beyond normal operational security. She walked to the center table, opened the dossier again, and pointed at a section. "You're reading the shutdown key backwards. The last 4 digits aren't code, they're a date." Her analysis was immediate, transformative. Complex technical problems that had stymied multiple teams were resolved through recognition that only she possessed. Silence. A stunned analyst mumbled. She cracked it in one look. "Who is she?" a lieutenant asked. "She's the contingency plan," Ramirez said. "When plans A through D fail, you call E." The explanation revealed hierarchy of response options. Someone who existed outside normal operational structures, available only when conventional approaches proved inadequate. E. "Her name's not a letter," Ramirez said. "It's Iwaning." In less than 20 minutes, she took control of 3 satellite uplinks and reconfigured the perimeter firewall manually. Her technical expertise was comprehensive. Immediate, complex systems that required specialized training were being modified in real time through knowledge that exceeded current personnel capabilities. The operation resumed under her lead. No official rank, no radio chatter. She just pointed and things happened. Her authority was practical rather than ceremonial. Command that derived from competence rather than position in organizational hierarchy. The text followed. The colonel stood aside. Personnel who'd been struggling with technical challenges were now implementing solutions with precision that suggested complete understanding of systems they'd been unable to operate effectively. No one questioned her presence again, because sometimes authority came not from assignment, but from capability. Sometimes leadership emerged not through promotion, but through demonstrated ability to succeed where others had failed. And sometimes the most critical operations were conducted by people whose authority transcended every formal structure except their proven ability to solve problems that no one else could address. She'd walked into crisis and restored order through knowledge that existed nowhere except in her memory and experience. Technical expertise that bridged the gap between theoretical understanding and practical application. Command presence that transformed confusion into coordinated action. The contingency plan in human form. At 0300 the next day, she stepped out of a tactical van into fog and floodlights. The operation had continued through the night. Equipment staging and personnel coordination for a mission that required someone with her specific capabilities. The facility, a biointelligence site 60 miles west, locked down for 18 hours. The location was remote, classified, research operations that combined biological systems with intelligence gathering in ways that couldn't be publicly acknowledged. No one inside, no signals out. Complete communication blackout with a facility that contained personnel and equipment critical to national security operations. "You're going in alone?" the escort asked. Agent Stevens had coordinated similar operations, but never with solo entry into hostile or unknown conditions. "If I go in with someone, we'll argue. If I go in alone, it'll listen." Her explanation revealed understanding of the situation that went beyond standard tactical assessment, knowledge of how to interact with systems that others couldn't comprehend. She carried no weapon, just a small device strapped to her wrist, blinking blue. The equipment was minimal, specialized, technology that suggested her approach relied on communication rather than force. She entered the decon corridor. The door shut behind her. Standard containment protocol for biointelligence facilities. Isolation procedures that protected both the facility and external environment from contamination. Cameras flickered inside the system. AI activated, unrecognized clearance. Proceed to holding area. Automated security that challenged even her presence. Systems designed to restrict access to specifically authorized personnel. Override, Wraith 09R. Silence. Then, override accepted. "Welcome back, Director." The authentication was immediate, complete. Recognition that transcended current personnel records and acknowledged authority that predated existing protocols. 10 minutes later, all power inside the facility restored, systems reset, files stabilized. Her intervention had been swift, comprehensive. Technical problems that had resisted resolution for 18 hours were corrected through her direct interaction with facility systems. On the outer perimeter, Ramirez received a live feed. Her voice came through calm. "It's not compromised. It's lonely. You left it too long in the dark." The diagnosis was remarkable. Technical failure explained not through sabotage or system malfunction, but through inadequate maintenance of artificial intelligence that required regular interaction. "What do we do now?" he asked. "Bring coffee and someone who knows how to listen." Her solution was simple, practical, technical systems that required human interaction rather than automated maintenance protocols. She exited the building with the same steady stride. Her departure was as unremarkable as her entry had been. Mission completed without drama or ceremony. The storm passed. Bouchame. The mission closed. Crisis resolution that restored normal operations without requiring extensive repair or replacement of compromised systems. On the tarmac, a young lieutenant approached her. "Ma'am, was this place really built for you?" Lieutenant Parker had observed the facility's response to her presence and recognized technology that seemed specifically designed for her interaction. "No," she said, "it was built because of what I did once. This is their way of remembering without putting my name on anything." The explanation revealed legacy systems that had been designed based on her previous contributions. Technology that incorporated her methods without officially acknowledging her role in its development, because some innovations were too classified to attribute. Some expertise was too valuable to document. And some people left impacts that shaped systems long after their official involvement had ended. The biointelligence facility existed because of techniques she'd developed. The AI systems responded to her because they'd been programmed using her protocols. The override codes worked because she'd created them years earlier as contingencies for situations exactly like this. She wasn't visiting foreign technology. She was returning to systems that had been built using her blueprints, operated using her procedures, and maintained using her understanding of how artificial intelligence and human intelligence could work together. Her retirement had been administrative rather than operational. Her knowledge remained embedded in systems that continued to require her expertise when conventional approaches proved inadequate. The next morning, the black SUV returned her home. She stepped out, same clothes, same quiet expression. Her return was as understated as her departure had been. Transition back to civilian life without ceremonial recognition. The rake was still by the fence. The gloves were still folded on the bench. Evidence that her life had been temporarily interrupted rather than permanently changed. Continuity that suggested this wasn't her first recall to service. A neighbor peeked through their curtains. They'd seen the SUV and the men in black, and the way the officers never came back. Mrs. Patterson had observed the previous day's events with growing curiosity and concern. Someone whose suspicions had initiated police involvement now witnessing federal-level attention to her quiet neighbor. Back inside, she poured a cup of coffee, black, no sugar. She picked up a paperback she hadn't finished, returned to routine activities that had been interrupted by operational requirements. Someone whose civilian interests were genuine rather than cover for ongoing activities. On the table lay a folded piece of paper left by the man in black. One says, "We'll try not to need you again." The message was professional courtesy, recognition that her availability was voluntary rather than compulsory. She didn't smile. She just folded the note in half and slid it under a stack of firewood. The disposal was practical, casual, someone who understood that some communications couldn't be preserved but didn't require dramatic destruction. In the local police department, the two officers never filed a report. When asked what happened, the younger one said, "She didn't threaten us, but I've never felt more out of place in my life." Officer Daniels had recognized encountering something beyond his experience or training. Someone whose presence had challenged his understanding of authority and threat assessment. "She wasn't just someone," the older one replied. "She was somewhere else, and we didn't belong in her world." Officer Morrison understood that they'd briefly intersected with operations that exceeded local jurisdiction and capability. She didn't need backup. She was the backup, the last line, the forgotten ace. Subscribe for more stories where legends live quietly only on Graceful Valor Stories.